main purpose of the work session was to go over the memorandum of understanding with the election commission. Dr. Wright has provided all of you all with a copy of that. I think that you had an opportunity to look at it. I know we sent it out over email here a week or so ago, but you got a hard copy there in front of you. I'll give you a few minutes there to look it over and ask any questions. Philip's here tonight, and we'll allow him to say anything he wants to here.
Not anything he wants to. Just some of what he wants to.
Well, Philip's a good man. We'll let him say about anything.
And it was important, Mr. Chair, as far as me tonight, because Mr. Warren will be meeting with his board tomorrow night. And so all this was, in the morning, I'm sorry, but everything was contingent as far as making sure that not only the agreements, but the plan in place. And there was a lot of moving pieces with this. And I do believe that we've got it, or we can move ahead with it.
That's the old ag office and special ed classroom, and I got what I call a T&I building there when I was there years ago. So it was an ag office too, ag classroom.
Is it where Lisa Tubble's classroom?
That's where Lisa's classroom was in one of those.
Right there on the
Yeah,
end.
on the end, where you come out of the breezeway, down through there on the left. Jim's on the right, Lisa was over here. Over next to Lisa was the ag office, and in the back of that was an old T&I building, and then they made it into a weight room in the latter years. Yeah. I guess the only thing that still got to me, Dr. Wright, was the part about where the board's gonna pay all the utility costs. I know we've been doing that anyway, but do we have any idea what those costs might be, Mickey?
No, I could get the engineers to run a cost on that, because it'll be all in one service when we get the new building done.
And we didn't see that as a fairly contentious, again, as far as it'd be far more difficult to separate it out.
Okay.
And so that was something that we didn't see that as an issue.
Okay, all right.
Is there I know we're thinking in terms of 5 years here, are we talking in terms of is this temporary after that? Or is it going to be something you all are going to try to?
I think that's kind of, Mickey, you and the Hut Mayor, I think, talked last week and just said it's 5 years. And then I guess we renegotiate, and I think the understanding is that the county commission is going to be looking for something permanent starting now. Our agreement with TCAT, where we're going next, we're going tomorrow.
As on a temporary basis.
Yeah, and part of that's only until May, so we have to find something in May, by May anyway of this year. And this won't be ready, I think, till October, November, so actually after the November election, we couldn't move it until probably 17 or the end of 16.
And Ms. Armstead, part of the conversation that we had too is that, with 5 years, that not only looking at that, but also providing notice on either party. But the thing that Philip and I talked about too is a good faith as far as making sure that we could work together, because again, we're not going to do anything, and even if I'm speaking on for a future director or even future board members, we're not going to do anything that's going to, put them at risk too, without having a building or anything. And that was something that not only was a promise to the commission that night that I was asked the question, but one that, putting it in writing and memorializing it, that will work. We'll work it out.
Philip, are y'all, this is maybe gonna be storage, correct?
Well, what we're doing with it now is maintenance. We've got a lot of machines, like the gym. We're using about 10,000 square feet now. When we set the machines up, you see 4 of them when you go vote, 4 or 6 at your polling place or 2. Well, we've got 230 for the county, and that's continuing. We're adding 25 this year. because the county keeps growing. So that fills up the gym. That's just maintenance and preparation of machines. The smaller gym, that auxiliary gym, is where all the supplies are, all the signs, all all the stuff that's mandated that has to go out. Then we've got, another, we have to use that whole room for the e-poll books. So really, it's more than just storage in the off years and maintenance. And then this year, it'll be we've got a training room. They were set up for maintenance, and, we've got 3 elections, so it's pretty much set up the whole 12 months.
Where I was going with that is just from electricity use. I don't think it's gonna be anything that we really need to be.
No, I don't think right now, I don't think it's been a huge, heating and cooling is probably the most expensive thing, and I don't think that's really never come
Yeah.
up.
Past that, I think we need to be good neighbors when we can in situations like this.
Well, we appreciate the partnership we've had for the last 3 years. It's been wonderful. It's made this county grow. It's made us be able to meet the needs. We were in the basement, had to find somewhere every year, every election, a few days before the election, literally. And this has given us an opportunity to reduce our staff and, save the county, save the taxpayers a lot of money. So we're looking forward to, improving on that as we go forward. And this is a good move forward. I think TCAT's a good temporary. We're moving tomorrow. We're planning, assuming everything goes well.
And the new addition too, as far as there were accommodations made as far as based on your recommendation and Tammy's as well, to accommodate as far as, what would be necessary for you and what you asked for too.
Yeah. Oh, y'all be great.
So this is y'all reduce cost by doing this?
Yes.
So y'all can kick back some money to us, won't be a problem?
Well, can't talk to the county commission about that. I doubt that'll happen. Other costs go up.
Do not put that in the minutes.
I want to strike it, that I want to let it know that the word kickback.
Yeah, that's not a good word,
Mr.
man.
McNeese.
That was a bad word, Sarah. Yeah, sorry about that.
Any other, Don, you got any questions?
What type of improvements are we gonna make to this? And is it gonna take till October of next year to do that?
Well, it's part of the entire complex, but the section as far as that, what we are dedicating to the election commission, there's some restroom changes in time. We're blocking out a wall so they have a bigger, entrance there. Plus they'll have access to those roll-up doors that also will be accommodated. But we're making some substantial changes within that space to accommodate their needs, which they need later on. I mean, it will work for us as well, but specifically because they're looking at machines that they're going to be moving in and out. Plus they need a training space as well. So.
Lighting, painting, cosmetic. Ms. Linda, you have anything?
I just thought that the
When you-
restrooms being moved made an improvement to the space that you're going to
Bill, you
utilize. Is
good?
that open office?
I'm good with it.
Philip, we can't take any formal action right now, but we will take it up in our board meeting when we start at 6 o'clock. So, I think we're good to go.
Let me ask, on what I hadn't seen what you've got, as far as the 90-day thing we had in there, what's been resolved on that?
Same thing as far as the 5-year with a 90-day, but with the thing that I also said in my response back to you, Phil, that as far as everything will be a good faith, will be a
So we didn't, Nikki, they didn't get changed?
One of the things that seems to be a concern for the election commission was if we gave them a notice and it was close to an election, and maybe instead of having the 90 or 180-day language in there, just say it's a complete 5-year agreement with no termination before that 5 years, and that gives them a 5-year warning. And then we come back to it after that. So if it's okay with you all, we'll go back in there and correct that. That came out after we emailed it to you, but then it'd just be straight 5-year agreement. And if we decide to renew it in 5 years, the board decides we want to do that, and the election commission, we just bring it back in front of you, and then you all decide to renew it, or maybe by then, we're hoping to have their own building by then, but.
And I think that's what we're going toward in the mayor and the commission too, and my commission, the election commission, we're all saying, let's find something that stands alone, that could be permanent from our successors in here.
But the one thing we wanted to be, that there wouldn't be anything that you were going to be, kicked out or whatever. We're not going to do that. And wanted to make sure, I can't say that enough.
Yeah, I understand you, when you put it, with us, who knows where we'll be tomorrow.
Are you saying, Vicki, that this, where it says in number 2 point, December 31st, 2016 and December 31st, 2021, that's the 5-year?
That would be a 5-year then there would, either party can't do anything until that day.
So number 4 would just be deleted.
Correct.
Okay.
Then everything else would be renumbered.
Right.
And that was agreed upon.
Why would you, well, you're saying not to eliminate it within 90 days of any
But with that,
program.
it's not for election.
We don't need it if that's in, okay, that's.
And the 5-year agreement puts it on the odd years anyway,
Puts it
so
on
that
there anyway.
should help a lot.
Yeah.
Commissioner Walker has a question.
Hey, Dan. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Larry. I just want to say from the county commission perspective, I know both you guys have a lot of moving pieces with all the construction, and it's good to see departments working together to get something done for the taxpayers and the departments. So, and I know Philip's done a lot with the high schools as far as doing elections with them. It's good to see everybody working together, and I thank everybody for that.
And we want to continue that.
Which brings me to another question. How many elections we have in 2016?
3.
3? Now, are we out of school all 3 elections? We are?
You want
Yeah,
to
that's-
counties in the state, you want to patriotic counties in the state, thank you.
Well, I think that's key too, being the good neighbors, I think that's key.
We've all had a good partnership.
Yeah, I don't like a bunch of people running around when kids are in school, so I think it's nice to be out when we can do those type of things.
And that's the reason why that kind of, unless it's something that's isolated to, you'll see most districts do that, but it's getting harder and harder.
Yeah, it is. So that's working well for everybody, right?
Great.
That I can answer.
How many schools do
Phil?
we use to vote?
I think 7,
7 or 8.
yeah, quite a few. It's getting harder to find places that are compatible with, modern voting equipment.
Mhm.
And, the little community demonstration clubs aren't there anymore. So schools and churches have become,
And how many poll workers do you work?
about between 350 and 400 depending on election. Yeah, a lot of, and that continues to increase as we're growing by 400 new registrations a month in Wilson County. We're sitting right at 75,000 registered, eligible voters. It just keeps going up. So we got challenges like you do. Just like
It
you do.
reflects what we deal with on a regular basis.
Same thing. Money and people.
Money and people.
All right. Well, if you stay around to our next meeting, when this comes up on the agenda, Don and I will both sign this, and you can take it with you for you have in the morning for your meeting. Okay?
Will that work?
Yeah, I mean, we're at 7 o'clock meeting, so
We're
we'll,
at 7 o'clock?
7 o'clock in the
Okay.
morning.
If you'll stick around, we'll get it to you tonight, and then we'll give it to you, you can take it with you.
Right.
You gonna be able to get Ronnie County up at 7 o'clock?
That's when he wanted it.
On his off day.
Before he starts selling cars.
Yeah.
Don't sell them Tuesdays off, this is off day. Tuesdays is off day.
Yeah, that's right. All right, Dr. Rice, we got
Work
work
tomorrow.
to do your work session.
That was that was the business that we had, and then as far as the main point for the work session, and then the other thing is any other business needed. So that was the important piece that I needed to make sure that was addressed by the board.
Okay. Don, you got anything you want to bring up in this work session?
Well, I've got an issue on 6.411. Is this a brand new policy, or is this just a rewrite of the old policy? 6.411.
I hope I know rewritten. The rewrite?
Yeah.
That was, again, if you'll go back to the early 2000s, that was something that we were required, not only from the federal, but as far as with the state. With that, with everything from the Nutrition Act to physical activity, that was a total rewrite of the original policy. In fact, Chuck's not here, but he will be here later as far as addressing that. And so I brought that to everyone's attention last month when it was first written. It was a rewrite of an original policy. In fact, it's not quite, I guess, as far as many pages. Because when it first came out in the early 2000s, it was a quite lengthy policy.
Yes, it was.
And we had to spell it out exactly as the federal government gave to us, so.
Was there anything particular that stood out to you there, Don?
Well, I've got a problem the way the closure of this policy is worded.
The closure as far as, so,
The last statement, to further this goal, all in each school shall implement all state and federal laws and regulations related to the development of curriculum services, standards, staffing, and assessment of wellness programs. I just think we probably, personally there, I want to give ourselves some flexibility. We may not want to. We may want to challenge some things that are added. I don't think we want to blindly say that we shall.
well, and again, as far as when you look at what legislation pushes again, and I'm you know, particularly with the Nutrition Act, the federal laws as far as for subsidized food services, there was a lot of I guess, rules and regs that were tied to that, as well as when you look at just recently with the School Nutrition Act. I mean, there's been some districts that, I want to use the term held hostage, simply because of food subsidies and how that is maintained by the federal government. That to the point that we're seeing a loss in the cafeterias right now. But again, that is still something that, as long as we avail ourselves of what the federal government helps us with nutrition, particularly for our free and reduced lunch population.
You know, I think that's why we need to give ourselves some leeway, flexibility in that, because we may choose at some point in time to not go there. We may say we don't want the federal money because there's too many restrictions or limitations or requirements.
I like the word should than shall.
Or review the changes and make, you know, decisions accordingly. I think anything we can do to give ourselves leeway so that we don't bind ourselves to make bad decisions.
The only thing I would caution you that on, again, as far as thinking about our children in poverty and our obligation to them, and to alleviate or not avail ourselves of what the federal government does provide there, I don't know that as a district we could step in and take care of that.
Well, I'm just saying, if we were to, then we would certainly want to have the flexibility to do it.
I understand, but
Because
I put that out.
At some point, I'd rather give them a meal that they would eat instead of throw away. That's what's happening today.
But can we afford to as a district? Again, that's the thing that I,
That don't mean we have to go away with it. Shall means we have to, should means we can or cannot, but I think we.
I would just caution the language change again.
I had a question about it, where it said, students will be given adequate time to enjoy healthy meals and relax in a pleasant environment.
That's an aspiration.
That's, I know the times that I visit my grandson at school to eat with him, he may have adequate time, but granddaddy sure doesn't.
Try the high schools.
Yeah,
And I like that, and relax in a pleasant environment.
yeah. I wondered about that for myself.
Well, and you know, it was one of those things too that, you know, I cannot speak, you know, for Wilson County, but I would assume that this dates back to when Dr. Duncan was here, because it was really the early 2000s that it really changed the landscape coming out of the federal government, and then the state, under, I think it was Sarah White, even at that time, set the guidelines, and we had to develop a health council. Every district had to have a health council. You had to have a school health advisory council that had different people, not only within the community, but also within different discipline. And it's one of those that you also have to develop and adopt a wellness policy. And we had to submit that to the state, and assuming, and I would say that Wilson County did the same thing, but it was early 2000s. And that was the time that they were also doing the health screenings, looking to make sure that we were maintaining health weights, trying to get an awareness. And so there was a lot of guidelines that we had to do. And it was the first time in my memory that you saw tension between food services and looking at other departments, because it changed the landscape of how they provided and served food to our children. And like Mr. McNee said, how much is thrown out, and it's gotten worse in the last 3 years.
We still do have recess at all of our elementary schools on days.
Yes. That night, if you look at that 90-minute activity thing, that is something that, again, it's been on the back burner for a while since the law changed. The thing that we're also seeing is that the state's giving little or no guidance other than saying it's required. And at one time, we were allowed to use the time between classes, and they came back this last year and said, no, you cannot count that. But here's the thing, we've got time constraints, not only in middle schools, not so much as we do in the high schools. So where do you carve that time out to meet that 90-minute activity? They get their PE credit in, and that's it. So the thing is that it's not that we don't want to be in compliance, but we don't know where to get the time unless we add time to the day. And not every kid participates. I mean, you can do things as far as participants in sports, participants that are in band. There's all kinds of things. But that's a struggle with high schools across the state right now, trying to meet that 90 minutes activity time. And so.
Can we say at least 90 minutes?
No.
Can't say at least?
No, and that's why, because we were using, as far as passing time between classes and counting, and they took that away and said that is not acceptable. So that's something that, again, the state's not giving us guidance other than saying to do it, and that is a topic of discussion at elementary, middle, and secondary administrative meetings across the state, and trying to figure out, and the answer that's come up as far as can we extend the day, but that has budget implications as far as extending the day. So we don't have an answer for that. But we're very much aware of it, and we know it's needed.
Mr. Chairman, another thing that concerns me about this change is privacy, protection of personal privileged information. If there are any recommendations that pass from council to be implemented, I think it has to be reviewed by the council, our attorney, for to make sure we don't violate HIPAA laws or FERPA laws.
We're very aware of that.
That's a great concern. You know, it's easy enough for that information to be divulged, and we certainly can't be contributors to that.
And here's Mr. Whitlock as we speak.
What do you want?
Chuck, the question is coming up as far as, you know, the advisory health councils that we have to under the wellness policy. I mean, that's a requirement.
The federal government required that about 12, 13 years ago. When
I wasn't too far off base.
it's been a while.
The councils itself, what do we do to ensure the privacy? Because that's always been a question.
It's the Wilson County Health Council, been around for probably close to 20 years. Never talk about students. Talk about trends, talk about policies, procedures. Never talk, there's never a name mentioned.
There's no personal information or anything that's even shared.
No.
Okay. Shall. We're going to use shall.
I'm not going to vote for shall.
Shall predicts future tense and the work that is not sure meant that I'm not sure that it's going to happen in the future, even the shall. Okay, will predicts future tense and the will and the work that will definitely be going to happen. So shall, even if it's used, is an indication, according to the dictionary I'm looking up, that it is meant to happen, but you're not sure it's going to happen. Even shall.
And Chuck, if the question came as far as the very last statement in the policy, Mr. Weathers was looking at, to further this goal, the board and each school shall implement all state and federal laws and regulations related to the development of curriculum services, standard staffing, and assessment of girls' programs, which is pretty standard. The shall is what's creating a little bit of a.
We copied directly from the TSBA, I'm sorry, I have to fix my acronym right, TSBA model policy. So I can't claim wordsmithing on that one.
And that's been pretty standard for whatever years as far as, and again, as I was sharing before you arrived, as far as our obligation, particularly when you look at school nutrition and all the obligations there, that we don't have a lot of latitudes or flexibility, so.
So even shall indicates that we do have some flexibility at some point if we want to change that, without it being.
Use the definition.
If we chose to challenge it when it came up, then we could just challenge it.
Right,
I mean, we would,
yes.
we could do that.
Exactly.
I as I see it.
It's a matter of
I mean,
semantics.
But as written, it looks like this is the way we're mandated to do it until we choose to
We shall
challenge
do
something.
this until something else happens, yes.
But if we chose to challenge it, if the board did, then they could. I mean,
Yes.
I don't see, wouldn't that be correct?
Yes,
Am I
that's what it's
missing
exactly
something?
saying.
I mean, aren't we have to do it this way until we choose, and then we deal with whatever we've got to deal with if we choose to challenge.
Something should come up or something that we had concerns.
And then we would take into consideration that we're jeopardizing our, whatever the federal government says, if we don't comply, then whatever, then we have to deal with that in the court case. I mean, that would be the issue. I mean, it's like to me, how it would be handled.
Any other discussion on 6.4?
Yeah, I have something, and I forgot to bring it up. And Chuck, you might be able to update it. If I remember correctly, on that 90-minute activity,
Yes.
did we not have a student that was doing something kind of neat?
We have an app that was developed, but we've got to get it a little bit further along to make it just another tool that specifically our middle school and high school classroom teachers can use. Not quite ready.
And what's the concept behind it? I'd forgotten about that.
It's called interval training or Tabata protocol, where you alternate 20 seconds of activity with 10 seconds of a lower intensity activity. So it would be very easy for, if you're in the middle of a 75-minute class, you can do a 2 or 3 minute activity just to kind of re-energize, re-oxygenate the brain, kind of move on a logical break in between parts of your class.
A student is developing the app.
Sohal Patel was his name. Lebanon High School.
I forgot. Okay, but you'll keep us posted on
Yes.
that, because that does have potential.
Yes.
Well, there is some studies out that talk about high-intensity training. A 20-minute session of high-intensity training being the equivalent of an hour of aerobic training or weightlifting or other, as far as the benefit to the body. So I don't know if there's some things we might be able to work in instead of them exercising the full 90 minutes. They do the equivalent of 180 minutes, but they do it in 45 minutes.
See, and it's 90
We want
minutes
to
over a
we
week.
want to wake them up, or we want to set, prime the pump for educationally as well.
Well, if you go through high-intensity training, it
Oh,
wakes
yes.
you up,
Yes.
I promise you.
And sometimes you want to wear them out so they can go back and focus.
And that's what you see with the little ones, as far as there's a lot of brain research as far as what happens.
You see the teenagers too. Back in and
But you've got to work that activity within what they're, they're in a classroom environment, some kind of high-intensity training, they wouldn't hardly be dressed for those occasions to be that type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, you might do it during PE instead of making a
Yeah,
PE
well,
period 30 minutes, you make it 15 and you do high-intensity training. You get the same benefit or more
oh, yeah.
in the 15 minutes if there's a way to stably prove something of that magnitude. I don't know.
Well, see, and the thing is that, it doesn't seem like a lot, 90 minutes per week, but it's trying to carve that time out, particularly for those kids that are no longer in the PE class or taking some of the elective physical activity classes.
And that really apply in the high schools. That's about 20 to 25% of our students are actually in an activity class at any given point.
Repeat that?
Only 20 to 25% of our kids are actually taking an activity class in high school at any given semester.
Any other questions on 6.411?
Ladies and gentlemen.
All right, I got a question on 6.712. Student transportation, private vehicle. Line number 1.
And not the strikeout line, but they're going.
Yeah, when students and participants in athletic clubs or organizations, they're not allowed to drive themselves or other students, or may they ride with other students to the activity. Now, my question is, does that include, like, whenever they're going out to sell their smart cards and that kind of things too? Because, I know we're in an urban area, but we still have a lot of young men and rural areas too. And if they gonna sell those smart cards, somebody's got to drive them. Mama, or daddy, or brother, or sister, or somebody.
And-
Now, how does that affect?
And I'm gonna have to, as far as rely on others, because that's not something that, again, when you're looking at participants in athletic club or organizational events, I don't know that that was even a consideration talking about smart cards or fundraisers or anything like that, so I don't know,
Well, it could be a fruit sale, or selling the Boston butts and stuff that the ag department barbecues every year. I said,
Most of us go get those. When you order them, you go pick them up, don't you?
well, sometimes you do, sometimes they deliver them too.
Larry, I can tell you, in our neighborhood, a parent will drive, they set the kids off, and they take each side of the street and go in the neighborhood and come back. And I've seen them do it over in where Mary Ann's neighborhood is too.
I'm saying you can do that in a neighborhood, but for some of the kids that live in the rural areas, they have to drive from house to house. There may be a mile or two that you don't have a house, or it's not somebody that you're used to talking to.
See, that question came up, and I know that Christy Dunn had even referenced that in a note that she had sent. And I guess in reading this policy, with the consideration of fundraisers or anything, that's an extension of schools. But again, I don't know that that was the intent. And again, you all will have to speak to that because this policy certainly predates me. But what was the intent as far as the latitude that you would give as far as does it take in fundraising?
This policy has evolved out of transportation for athletic events.
And that's what I would assume.
It's to keep one child piling 10 kids in the car and them driving
I
from here
understand
to
that.
Murfreesboro to a baseball, basketball, softball, football team.
I
And the liability
understand
that was
that.
there.
And all the liabilities.
I understand that, and I think that addresses that in here too, as you come on down into the bottom part of the policy.
Yeah.
But up there in the front, on the front end, number one, it's a gray area there, in my opinion, just how does that affect?
Well, I guess the thing, I look at the operative word, nor may they ride with other students to the activity. I don't know that that would qualify as an activity. And maybe that's being, I don't know. But that was the operative word. Again, when Christy sent the note, because that didn't even factor into my thinking. But
And that was the first thing I thought of.
So
That
it didn't
or like
enter
the
mine.
fair thing that we did last year. I mean, that involved every football team and, our players drove because it was after practice, then they drove home and.
And,
Yes.
my response to you was the liability, because any district has to really make sure that they mitigate any responsibility that's directly tied to an activity, whatever it might be. And the thing that, like Mr. Weather said, it was to keep students from either loading up, is because, again, the implications for a family, if there's a wreck.
Well, first thing you think about is what happened, 2 years ago with the students from over at Portland. They've been over here to a bowling tournament, or bowling match, or whatever you call it, and what happened to them. So I understand the need for the policy about the kids traveling back and forth, but I do think we need some clarification on saying that these kids can't, or a sibling couldn't be driving with somebody around, or another student, they couldn't get together.
Well, is that something we need to ask Mr. Jennings to maybe either footnote it or something?
I was just about to suggest, why don't we ask him to give us some language concerning athletic-related events versus non-athletic events, or totally, completely extracurricular activities outside of the normal school day. Because really, an athletic event is an extension of the school day. Whereas, if you're going out to sell tickets or do fundraisers and things of that nature, it's not really and truly an extension of the school day.
Because extracurricular activities, anything that you can go back directly to the school,
Well, it's not required, like the fair thing wasn't required, it wasn't a requirement, was it?
According to our coach, yeah, it was a requirement.
But he could not have actually
Right, but,
done anything to
yeah,
create a disciplinary situation in that
Correct.
situation.
correct. But again, when I read.
It's peer
when-
pressure.
After it went on first reading, I was like, that's a lot of things and a lot of organizations that affect if that reads that broadly. So for my own clarification, I was like, I
Well, we'll
wanted
get
further clarification.
Dr. Wright,
We just
check
want
with council.
And that's what I'm doing.
How we can do
pull that
that.
one off the agenda.
But now,
This is second reading on it, right?
This is second reading, I mean, it's one that I can go ahead as far as,
we
again,
can pull that off tonight.
okay.
But wouldn't that be just additional language rather
Can
than,
we just go ahead and
removing
approve
it
it
from-
with additional language clarified?
it's not anything that
Were
we,
you sure?
this
you don't
policy,
think that
what we've
would
got
make
here would be in
it
effect, wouldn't it, if we need to add in
We,
to this?
the other policy is still in effect, the old policy. And it would remain in effect, if we don't do anything with this one tonight, it would remain in effect until we get the new language.
Because if you look at what we're taking out is that introductory wording that really,
It has no impact on the
none
policy
whatsoever,
at all.
it's inappropriate policy language. And then we added a successful background check is performed by the school.
And we're doing that anyway, right?
But it
Well,
wouldn't lessen
we're talking
what
about
we
the
had in
parents.
effect now, if we went ahead and approved this, then added to that policy, the FD told us we needed to. As I see it. I mean, if you needed a successful background check to be added in this week, you wouldn't have that if that was added in from the old policy. What I'm trying to say
You're
is,
already doing background checks, or running them through our system, right?
Right.
So we're doing that, yeah, we're doing the rapid system already.
The language that's new to this is for parents that are going to be transported.
Transport.
That we're not doing yet, but,
Oh, okay.
that's what I'm,
Yeah.
whatever the pleasure of the board is, I'll make it happen.
it's not gonna release us from this other end of the deal that we're now added into this conversation. We talked about, you know, what we've been talking about. If we went ahead and passed this, then we could add that into it because there was no way have an effect upon what we're doing.
I'm okay with that.
I mean, so I think we should, if we need this corrections that we've already got, go ahead and then add in as we're advised by our attorney. As I see it.
Right.
Because if we're going, just gonna fall back on the old policy, wouldn't be addressing that in the first place.
Y'all good with that?
I'm good with
There was a question we just brought up about the fundraiser thing. This doesn't have anything to go. Are we through with any of this other stuff? Okay, I'm gonna ramble a little bit in a minute. Thing about fundraisers. I know we all gotta have them in every program, every sport needs them, has to have them to survive on or to get what they need. But sometimes I wonder if we don't go a little bit overboard. I know that, you know, all student athletes don't have the same privileges as other people might have. And to tell somebody that you gotta sell $600 worth of smart cards or whatever they are, if you want to get a hoodie, or you want your name on the back of a sweatshirt, you know, a lot of kids can't do that. And it might be, I guess the word would be, it might be an embarrassment to them, that they don't have the resources or the family members that can contribute to that. I certainly don't want to meddle in anybody else's business and tell them how to raise funds for their sports that they have to do. But I just don't ever want us to put our kids in a position to think that if they want to look like everybody else looks, they got to raise a certain amount of money. And if we can't provide them with what they need, we need to look at doing something over here. That's just Larry's opinion, and which don't mean a whole lot here at 57, so.
But the question though that also poses is that, does that create a barrier for some kids not even being able to participate?
It could very well do that. It very well could do that. And I don't see that happen.
We raise about $6 to $8 million a year that runs through our schools, that does not come through our budget.
I know it does.
So it takes a lot of money to operate our school buildings.
Sure does.
And, you know, I wish we could write them a check to where the kids didn't have to go out and raise a penny. But you're talking about another big burden that would place on the budget. So if they want to have all the things that they want to participate and look good, I don't see any other way of doing it, Mr. Tomlinson. I wish, because that's a lot of time kids could be studying or participating in other events that would make them a better student. But, you know, seeing something they want and working to get it's probably not a bad thing either.
If they have the resources to do it.
Yeah, and we all have different resources. I agree with that.
Some of them don't have the luxury of having parents that can take them around. They have to get out and do things on their own, or walk to somebody's house, or go to her business, walk to that. But Ms. Armstead made an interesting statement to me one day about her grandchildren that are playing down in Georgia. And Lynn, I just share that with the board, you know, audience here a minute, as to what you told me that it took for LJ to play football at North Gwinnett High School.
About $1,000 they had to pay or sell and provide that in order to participate in this. They had to sell that. They were required to do that. That was expected. That was just, that's baseball, and there was a football expectation as well. So every sport had a different level of expectation concerning funding that that student was required to bring in order to participate, which was just kind of understood across the board. That's the way it was. If you want to play, you pay.
There's a lot of schools doing
And I go back to the barrier it creates for those kids that would like to participate, but will never have the resources to be able to be participants.
But that was the cost of what that was what it cost in order to be able to provide the equipment and all the things that, so you have to determine, like, you have to question, how much are we going to spend on the academics versus what we have to spend on what's going to benefit a smaller percentage of students there. And not that it's not any less, because our society so values athletics and all that goes with it. But it's still a smaller percentage of people who are involved in that than there would be the academic part.
And when you look at even with the fine arts, with band and everything else, you're also talking about expense as well, so.
Yes.
Right.
Which I would want us to put our money in orchestra and the strings and the elementary schools if we could do so.
This work session is now adjourned.